The other day I was editing a video, and as it goes with all my videos, I got an idea from some of the additional content that I was sifting through. For this video, I wanted to include clips from some Shein hauls pulled from the sewer depths of TikTok. I ended up finding a few videos that were incendiary enough to prove my point, and I downloaded them. Rather than leave the toxic wasteland of TikTok though, I decided to harm myself. I looked at the comments. I was particularly appalled at the amount of excess in these videos. That was nothing new, but I wanted to see if anyone else was feeling the same way that I was. More than that though, I wanted to see the arguments from those who were defending this kind of behavior. One video I found was a woman showcasing a Shein haul with 34 new articles of both summer clothing and accessories. A comment read, "Sorry, but why are we still buying from Shein when we all know that they use child labor?" One person decided to reply, "Because it's cheap and we are not rich either." When someone commented pointing out the poor quality of the clothes looked so cheap, another user replied, "So what? It's cute." My brain rot would get worse as I continued to look through the most popular Shein hauls on the platform. Another video was a haul consisting of 55 new clothing items and accessories. A user commented, "Fast fashion," to which the creator replied, 90% of clothing is fast fashion, please. The worst of all was a TikTok of a woman filming her $2,000 Shein package being delivered to her home. One person had the gall to comment in defense of this creator, not y'all telling her how to spend her money, which the creator liked. Looking through these videos and their comments perplexed me. I've known that TikTok is not the best place to have intellectual discussions on serious issues like capitalist exploitation and climate change, but the amount of comments that I saw defending this kind of behavior was shocking to me. I started obsessively thinking about these videos and their implications. Listen, I'm not perfect, and I'm not making this video to act like some sort of moral purist, but I am making this video to say that the worst examples of consumption by those in the West should be shamed, not defended. Firstly, the defense that people should be able to buy from wherever they want just because they're not multimillionaires is flaccid at best. Using the Shein haul example, many of the most popular hauls online feature people buying dozens upon dozens of items, sometimes adding up to hundreds of dollars in total merchandise. Even when I was an ignorant 14-year-old who shopped at Forever 21, neither my mom nor I ever once had the ability to spend over $100 on clothes from there all at once. From what we can tell, most of these people in these videos are not in poor financial positions. There's no need to ride their dick, truly. Most Shein shoppers purchase more than just 2 or 3 items at a time. The real question is, are you actually too poor to buy any clothes, or are you too poor to buy dozens of new items every month that cost more than $10 a piece? As an American, in terms of your access to certain products, hell, even when it comes to your access to life-saving vaccines, you have immense privilege. Privilege that is built off the backs of workers in other countries who have nowhere near the amount of commodities that we have. A report from 2022 showed that if everyone were to consume resources at the rate at which people in Canada, Luxembourg, and the United States do, at least 5 Earths would be needed. Not only are the majority of rich countries failing to provide healthy environments for children within their borders, they are also contributing to the destruction of children's environments in other parts of the world, said Gunilla Alson, director of UNICEF Office of Research. I don't say all this to shame the most disadvantaged in this country. I've been there. I am there. I'm saying this because the majority of Americans do not need to consume as much as they currently are. Even when it comes to food waste, which is one of the top CO2 emitters, our numbers are vastly higher than other countries. A 2022 report from the Hot or Cool Institute found that while the richest 20% in the UK emit 83% above the 1.5 degree target, 74% of people in Indonesia live below sufficiency consumption levels of fashion. Fashion footprints need to be reduced by 60% on average by 2030 among G20 high-income countries. On average, the fashion consumption of the richest 20% causes 20 times higher emissions than those of the poorest 20%. Just because you are not Jeff Bezos doesn't mean that you do not benefit from a system of capitalist exploitation in some way. Of course, you also likely suffer from it, but everyone suffers to varying degrees. Yes, both men and women suffer from the patriarchy, but the system is designed for the men's benefit. White people suffer from race classifications as they are pushed into one homogenous white race whose only culture is hot dogs and hamburgers. But if I came on here and said that white people are just as oppressed as black people, you would all cancel me. Rightly so. We all suffer from capitalism to some extent, but some of us benefit more than others. Those who are in the middle and upper class of the West benefit a lot more from the system than most of us are willing to admit. I've never understood the argument that just because the system sucks, that means we should engage with it in the most unethical ways possible. I'm well aware that the effects of climate change should mostly be blamed on the world's richest. However, as a collective nation, America is rich, therefore has a lot more power and privilege than other countries. I'm not advocating that we should start a class war outside of the 99% versus the 1%. But I am arguing that you shouldn't abandon all morals and refuse to accept what privilege you have just because there are people and corporations that are worse than you. Secondly, defending cheaply made clothing just because you think it's cute is not even an argument at all. It only proves that you don't value the garments you purchase. Most of the best clothing items I've ever purchased were found in random thrift shops that all sell buckets of rusty knives in the back room. I guess the problem that I'm grappling with is that most people are not willing to make changes that make their lives harder, even if it means making other lives better. Besides the moral and ethical arguments, there are many financial benefits to being anti-consumption. Why buy 30 new tops every year that are going to fall apart in a few months if you could instead slowly fill up your closet with high-quality garments that actually mean something to you? People want everything to be quick and easy, even if it's at the expense of their own wallets. Thirdly, defending your huge Shein haul in particular because most clothes are fast fashion is a pathetic argument. As many have stated before, we can all acknowledge that if you're buying clothes, or really anything new, you're not buying something ethically made, simply because the system requires exploitation on some level in order to function like this. Even the most ethical fashion brands are still creating new items that we do not need by using valuable resources, on top of generating a profit that mostly goes to one person at the top. You can acknowledge all of this while also being aware that Shein is by far the worst fashion brand on the market, although to call it fashion is insulting. For one, according to the company's sustainability report, Shein emitted 16.7 million total metric tons of carbon dioxide in 2023, more than what 4 coal power plants spew out in a year. A new Shein design may take as little as 10 days to become a garment, and up to 10,000 items are added to the site each day. The company reportedly offers as many as 600,000 items for sale at any given time, with an average price tag of roughly $10. A BBC investigation found that workers in Shein factories in Panyu, China, work every day of the month for upwards of 75 hours a week. One worker told the Swiss publication Public Eye, "I work every day from 8 in the morning to 10:30 at night and take one day off each month. I can't afford any more days off because it costs too much." Furthermore, employees reported making anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000 yuan a month, with the minimum wage in the factory's locations being around 2,300 yuan. However, those higher wages were only achieved during grueling work weeks, not within the 44-hour workweek national limit that's set in China. I think people often don't realize that there's no way to produce items this cheap at this level without people being heavily exploited. This is evident in the fact that the average American balks at anything costing more than what their perceived idea of what something's worth is. Take the response to Shein previously raising their prices due to Trump's insane tariffs. In April, Shein and other cheap Chinese retailers like Temu raised their prices to widespread disapproval from their customers. At the end of May, though, they posted a statement to their website after China and the US agreed to pause their tariffs for 90 days, stating, "There was lots of chatter around tariffs, and customers don't need to worry about paying anything extra after checking out." Most of the price increases that Shein implemented immediately were because of the de minimis exception ending on May 1st, which refers to Section 321 of the Tariff Act of 1930 and allows the Secretary of the Treasury to waive some duties or fees where it is more inconvenient to collect the tax than the revenue would actually be worth. In other words, it is a trade loophole that allows for low-value goods to be shipped to the country duty-free. More than 30% of all daily packages shipped under de minimis are from Temu and Shein, Reuters reported. Packages under $800 could essentially be exempt from tariffs due to this exception. Longer shipping times were also expected since package carriers would have to report shipment details to US Customs Enforcement. Of course, we saw plenty of people go to TikTok to talk about the price increases, but what was most interesting to me was a report from OmniSend which found that 30% of customers said they'd stop or reduce their shopping on these marketplaces if prices went up. I think it's really interesting, or extremely depressing, that people view denim shorts being $15 instead of $10 to be outrageous. Now, I'm not putting down poorer people who can't spend a lot of money on clothes by any means. However, I think that it's sad that a lot of people don't seem to realize the amount of human and material resources that go into making their products. A pair of denim shorts should cost more than a few bucks to make. I mean, if you've ever shopped at a small business that sells only handmade goods, you'll know that prices are steep. Mostly because all the items are not made on an assembly line, but also because high-quality goods take a lot of labor and resources to make. Now, Shein garments were absolutely not worth the 145 price increase from the tariffs, because the clothes are such terrible quality. However, keep in mind that that cheap price isn't just because the clothes suck. It's also because the workers are being heavily exploited. One Shein spokesperson said in response to the Yale Climate Collection's article, "We do not see growth as antithetical to sustainability." Of course, it is though. The market needs to continue growing, and for that to happen, people need to continue buying new things. Our entire culture is designed around buying new everything. There is no future where the planet is not a flaming ball rotating the sun if we do not stop producing and consuming at the rate that we are. And the only way for that to happen is if the entire capitalist system falls. We're told that the solution is offsetting our carbon emissions and creating more sustainable ways to pick cotton. Nope. While these may be useful, they're only a band-aid to the problem of overproduction. The only real solution is these companies ceasing to exist. What causes overconsumption, and why is it getting worse over time? First and foremost, it's our economic model. Laura Fox, environmental lawyer and research scholar at Yale Law School, tells Sentient, "Capitalism promotes constant growth and rewards consumerism, and that mindset leads to overconsumption, and people buying more than what they need. In theory, corporations could take steps to reduce overconsumption as well. In practice, they usually don't, because they profit from it. In a capitalist system, consuming usually entails purchasing a good, and selling goods is how businesses make money. There's not a lot of huge incentives for companies to stop producing and getting people to buy their products, Fox says. Overconsumption is such a systemic problem and is perpetuated by large corporations whose interests lie in the consumption of their goods and services. Finally, people online have every right to criticize someone's spending habits. Your purchases are no longer private the moment you decide to film it and post it online. While I don't want people to give me their unsolicited opinions on my back problems, I can't be surprised when I get comments like that. That's why I don't share 99% of the things I deal with in my life, because I don't want to hear anyone else's opinion on it. If you're sharing your $2,000 Shein haul on TikTok of all places, you are opening yourself up to criticism. It doesn't matter if you think that you're especially immune from it. No one online is. That's the beauty of the internet. I don't criticize these people because I want to tell them how to spend their own money. I do it because what they're doing is causing irreparable harm. Anti-consumption, sustainability, the environment, animal welfare, human rights, and so on all mean a lot to me. We're at a point where there is no turning back from the effects of climate change. At this point, it's a matter of how bad things are going to get. And yet, there are people defending others' rights to spend their money how they please, as if they are the only people on this earth. As if their desire for highly cheap and accessible clothes is what matters most. Seth Milstein wrote for Sentient Media, of all the human practices that are gradually destroying the environment, overconsumption is one of the most significant and least discussed. At the smallest scale, this occurs at the individual level, but overconsumption is more commonly measured on a country-wide, continent-wide, or planet-wide basis. Higher-income countries consume 6 times more resources than low-income countries, according to a UNEP report. In North America, the average person consumes 9 times as many natural resources as the average person in Africa. The World Wildlife Foundation reports that rising sea levels could impact 1 billion people by the year 2050, that if temperatures rise 1.5 degrees Celsius, a number that is very likely to occur at this point, then by 2100, up to 70% of coral reefs will face severe degradation. That if the planet warms by 2 degrees Celsius, in as little as 1 decade we will have ice-free Arctic summers. 2.7 billion people will face extreme heat waves every year. That there will be a 175% increase in flooding risk. This reporting doesn't even begin to cover the rest of the effects that we will all face, regardless of geographical location, of which there are numerous more. I feel like I'm going crazy sometimes, like people don't care or don't give enough energy to fighting climate change. I don't say that to act like I am better than everyone else. I'm certain that there are people who care deeply but don't have the resources to act in better ways, and or people who feel like what they do won't matter. But I'm here to tell you that what you do does matter. I'm not making this video to shame you for any purchases you might have made. I know I've made plenty of questionable ones in the past. I'm making this video to show that we all play a role to a varying degree, and that ignoring that role is wrong in my eyes. We do have power. There are hundreds of millions of us and only about 2 million in the top 1%. The top 0.01% that houses the Zuckerbergs and Musk of the world is even smaller. We don't have to sit back and let them take advantage of us. There are so many things that we can't control. We can't control that the paychecks we get will likely be from a terrible company. Everyone doesn't have the privilege to make certain choices, but those of us who do should make the better choice when available. If shaming others for their overconsumption turns you off from me, then so be it. I am far from perfect. I don't walk on water, although some have speculated that I can. Every day, I likely do something that is negatively impacting someone else, and that's just by virtue of living in the United States. In this video, I will give specific examples of overconsumption online and why it should be considered unacceptable and shameful. I will discuss parts of my own personal journey, not to act like a god or something, but to show you all that it is possible to stop participating as much as you can in this capitalist culture of overconsumption, not only for your own consciousness, but also for the good of the collective. If you're thinking of a negative comment to leave, at this point, you're likely considering calling me out for seemingly putting the responsibility of climate change on the individual. While I agree, we shouldn't put most of the responsibility on the individual, what I'm talking about is large swaths of individuals making serious changes to their lives, not just a few people trying to get all their waste to fit in a fucking mason jar. I will never shame people for doing what they need to do, as I would hate it if someone did that to me. However, I will criticize those who take advantage of their position and do much more than they need to do. As a collective, we have more power than you may think. I should probably end my rant there though, because if I were to say what I really think people should do, I'd get shipped out of here and into a foreign prison quicker than I could. My own journey with environmentalism and the like has been all over the place. Since I was a kid, I've always felt a connection with the planet and animals. For a while, I had a basic understanding of climate issues. Littering is bad, fossil fuels are bad, but I had a limited grasp on overconsumption, where our stuff comes from, capitalism, and more. When I was 15, I learned about fast fashion from a YouTuber named Kristen Leo. I learned about the performative idea of zero waste from YouTuber Shell Bizzle, who has since changed her stance on the matter and who I still watch to this day. When I was 16, I even went vegan, though I am not vegan anymore, and only held out for about 6 months before I realized that I did not know how to properly supplement myself with nutrients. Today, I still hold most of the beliefs that made me go vegan in the first place. That may sound hypocritical to many of you, but my feelings on animal products is entirely too complex to dive into in this video. And Americans, like we do with everything, consume vastly more amounts of meat than we need to in order to maintain our healthy or less than healthy lifestyles. I'm not advocating that we all become vegan overnight, but as with the theme of this video, if we all stop over-consuming animal products, it would make a big difference. Since then, my views have only become further left, or well, left is this way for you. This year, I finally stopped shopping on Amazon and stopped using the excuse that it was my only option. Would you believe it? 5 months has passed, and I'm still very okay and alive. I haven't gone to my local Walmart in 6 months, and though I am, again, not perfect, these changes are important not only to my extremely small wallet, but also to my consciousness. I even stopped myself from guzzling on Nintendo's dick and forking over $500 for a new console. Why would I criticize every other corporation and people buying new tech items if I'm just gonna turn around and do the exact opposite? I don't want to be the person who is so consumed by their own politics that they can't allow others or even themselves to enjoy anything. What I'm trying to say is that you can still enjoy things without being a willing participant in every part of the system. I still buy things, rarely, the small wallet, but I heavily prioritize buying used everything. And if I am buying something new, I seriously question it before spending a single penny. You don't have to cosplay as the Unabomber to make a change, you just have to start somewhere. Since February, I've only grocery shopped at my local grocery stores. Doing so has made me more frugal, yes, but is that necessarily a bad thing? I don't have everything at my fingertips at my local store like I do at Walmart, but I don't need everything to make some fire-ass food. Literally. It's a fire in my ass because I have hemorrhoids. Now I look at the weekly ad at my store and build meals off of what's on sale, saving myself money all while giving my business to a local store. I realize that a lot of people don't have the time or energy to do this, but keep in mind that you don't know all the ins and outs of my life, nor do you know exactly what privileges I do or don't have. I'm not saying that you need to do the exact same things that I do, or that you don't have a strong sense of morals if you don't. I'm just sharing that it is possible to remove some of yourself from the grips of these predatory corporations. There is a widely held pessimistic belief that boycotting companies doesn't work, for we don't have the power to make changes at as large of a scale as we need to. Boycotting is only a performative act. But it is anything but. In April this year, it was reported that Target's stock dropped to a 4-year low on April 4th. They also saw its foot traffic drop for the 10th consecutive week, a traffic slump that began the week after Target announced it was canceling its Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion (DEI) program in January. We can't say for certain whether Target's stock declining is because of their DEI policies. It could also be because of people shopping less due to financial constraints or for environmental reasons. A year after Bud Light's anti-trans boycott following the fateful Dylan Mulvaney sponsorship, some outlets have reported that the boycott could have cost Bud Light over $1 billion in lost sales. If conservatives could rally that hard over a shitty beer brand, I think that everyone on the left side of the aisle could join together to truly cause some harm to companies like Amazon. The problem is that consumerism is so interwoven in all aspects of our society. I can implore people for days on end to stop buying new things or to stop supporting certain businesses, but many people won't do so because, to no fault of their own, a life without these options is more difficult for them. Chip Colwell wrote for The Guardian last year. Others have pointed out that attacking consumption itself in order to solve the problems of overconsumption is unlikely to succeed. Consumerism has become a symbol of liberty and democratic equality. In today's world, the idea goes, anyone can consume anything, and thus be turned into the person they want to be. The symbolic glow of consumption cannot simply be turned off. We still need bigger answers that don't reframe just individual consumption, but how our larger world of consumerism operates. More than this, I really appreciated how he ended his piece. There are strong moral arguments that we have an obligation to reduce our consumption and its associated waste, because although our individual contributions to the environmental crisis may be infinitesimally small, our small sacrifices, buying less plastic for example, do add up to meaningful change. Such sacrifices also express our values, which can inspire others around us to do their part. This moment of emergency requires immediate action, and for now that must mean collaborating with the companies that make our modern world. It does not mean acquiescence, however. All of us must do our part to push those in power to create real and meaningful change, even as we must seek to make real and meaningful change in our own lives. Personally, I can't just sit back and be an active participant in consumption, so I opt out of it as much as I can. More than just saving money, opting to buy used everything is the logical choice in most instances. For example, reports have estimated that there is enough clothing on the earth right now to clothe the next 6 generations. That does present some caveats though. For one, many of those clothes may be poorly made fast fashion that won't even last a year. Secondly, not everyone will be in an optimal situation to buy used everything all the time. For example, plus-size people often have hard times finding quality secondhand pieces that fit. While both of these sentiments are true, I don't view them as a reason to justify buying dozens of new clothing items every few months. Furthermore, donating and decluttering your clothes, or whatever else, much like recycling, is a fundamentally flawed system. The vast majority of donated items go to the landfill, and even more gets sent to ginormous wastelands of discarded garments in poorer countries. This system does not work as intended because we are buying more things than we actually need. This is just another reason to buy less new stuff and to consider your purchases before actually checking out. The UN Environment Program estimates that between the years 2000 and 2014, people started buying 60% more clothes and wearing them for half as long. We've got to this point where no one has a real relationship with their clothing anymore, says Tom Crisp, Sustainable Fashion MA course leader at Falmouth University. It's just something that we put on and then we can chuck it away without necessarily thinking of where it's come from and what happens to it when we get rid of it. Chloe Assam, in the Netflix documentary Buy Now, The Shopping Conspiracy, said, as reported by The Independent, there are 30 million people in Ghana and we have 15 million pieces coming in every week. Textile factories in other countries have also been linked to heavy amounts of sexual and physical abuse. The sexual harassment the women are facing in the garment industry is directly linked to their desperation to keep their jobs at all costs, says Tivia Rakini, president of the Tamil Nadu Textile and Common Labor Union. Their fingerprints are all over the clothes that people in rich countries wear, but their suffering is being silenced. In one facility in Nachi, India, a woman was allegedly murdered by her supervisor. The supervisor was said to be a known sexual predator by other workers at the factory. Investigators concluded that at least 2 other women were also murdered in a period of 3 years. The labor rights groups involved in the Nachi case say the abuse that was uncovered should not be seen as an isolated incident. Instead, it is an indication of how sexual violence has flourished and become deeply embedded into the production model of fast fashion. What we are facing is an epidemic of gender-based violence in the global fashion industry. But because it is happening to poor women working thousands of miles away, it isn't considered the huge human rights scandal that it is. For me, my decision to consume less is in part an active choice, but also a result of my circumstances. I've never really had excess throughout my life because of my family's income, but that doesn't mean that I didn't have, at times, nice things. However, if I started making bank tomorrow, I would not abandon my personal beliefs to just mindlessly consume. Would I buy a better car? Fuck yeah, I would. I'm still driving my first car, but I wouldn't buy it brand new. To some who are even more extreme than me, they may see that as an unnecessary purchase, but to me, it's justified. A lot of it is subjective in all honesty, but that doesn't mean that there aren't obvious signs of excess and overconsumption. A recent popular example of overconsumption and consumerism's herd mentality is Labubus. If you don't know what that is, be grateful. Labubus are basically collectible toys created by the Chinese artist Kanseng Lung well over a decade ago. In 2019, Labubus began to be sold in pop marts, which are stores that sell toys to adults. Actual toys like Beanie Babies, not adult toys. I'm much more well-versed with those kinds of stores. AP reports that Labubus began blowing up in 2023 when they started selling bag charms, an accessory for bags and purses that had blown up a lot in the past 2 years. Numerous celebrities were photographed with the Labubu bag charms, leading to a huge popularization of the brand. Labubus are a blind box item, meaning many people will buy entire sets hoping to get a higher chance at getting each Labubu in a collection. Labubus are a combination of consumerism and gambling, 2 of the biggest problems in the world. Why don't we just add opioids to the mix? In each collection, there is one secret Labubu design that you have a 1 in 72 chance of getting, meaning people will have to purchase a lot if they really want to compete an entire collection, of which there are many. Labubus have been a particularly disturbing case of consumerism in America. Outside of Pop Mart stores across the country, people have shown up in troves, sometimes lining up at 4 or 5 in the morning to get a chance to buy one of these hideous dolls. The only time I ever lined up to buy anything was when I went to pick up my copy of Animal Crossing New Horizons that I pre-ordered from GameStop in 2020. Little did I know that would be the last time I would see another human being for 5 months. On top of this, scalpers have been squeezing the Labubu market, showing up to these pop-ups only to buy out every single Labubu available. There are even fake Labubus called Lafufus that many people have gotten scammed into buying. Some people online have huge collections of Labubus with entire closets for these dolls. I hate to burst your bubble, but the likelihood that Labubus will be worth anything a few years from now is highly unlikely. The extreme rise of Labubus led people who never had an interest in collecting toys, or an interest even in collecting, to suddenly buy dozens upon dozens of these dolls. In a year or 2 from now, do you genuinely believe that most of these people will still be dressing up their Labubus and showing them off? Or will they be tossing them into the donate bin, along with their hundreds of other impulse purchases? I'm not saying that you can't enjoy having a cute toy. I'm not saying that everyone who has bought one did it purely because they wanted to be part of a trend. However, I am saying that this Labubu craze will not last, but the Labubus will. Forever. Stanley Cups, somehow, are also still popular in the online zeitgeist. Stanley Cups have had a very similar trajectory to the Labubu dolls. For some reason, over the past couple of years, Stanley Cups, particularly the travel tumbler style, has blown up in popularity. I covered some of the Stanley craze in a video I uploaded last year, so I won't be going in depth with it right now. What I really want to discuss are people's collections of these water bottles. If you're brain rotted like me, you've likely seen one of these videos before. In sum, there are more than just a few people, unfortunately, who have collected entire walls of Stanley Cups. I really do not see why I have to explain why this is legitimately insane, but I will anyway. The most obvious flaw in these videos is that reusable mugs, water bottles, tumblers, whatever the fuck, were created to reduce the need for single-use bottles. I, for one, still use the same hideous floral water bottle that my mom bought me for Christmas 6 years ago. I take this fucker everywhere with me. The only other water bottle I have is one I bought myself for school the year prior. It's twice the size, so I only use that one when I know I'll need a lot of water, but won't be able to fill it up anymore. How these people are not utterly embarrassed at the fact that they have thousands of dollars of the same water bottle, I honestly have no idea. There is no excuse for this. I don't care that these people can do whatever they want with their money. This is sickening. I realize that the true value of collections is entirely subjective. If someone views collecting something to be important to them and it brings them joy, typically I would have no issue with it. For example, I collect books and physical video games. Some may view my collection of books or plastic game cases to be wasteful, but to me it means a lot. I love all the books and games that I own. At any time, I can choose to utilize any book or game on my shelves. Collections also don't necessarily need to appreciate in value over time to be worth something to the collector, but many collections do feature this trait. For example, retro gaming is a very lucrative way of making money, give or take a couple decades. Cars instantly depreciate in value as soon as you drive them off a lot, but certain models can be sold for millions of dollars decades after initial release. Collecting reusable water bottles is a waste of money at best and a severe lapse of consciousness at worst. TikTok is already being inundated with tons of videos of people decluttering their tumbler collections. Where will these discarded bottles go? If they're lucky, the donation store where the poor workers who have to sort through them all. More likely though, they'll end up in the landfill or dumped into another poorer country's seaside. My personal beliefs lead me to not buy as much and to avoid buying new whenever possible. I understand that everyone doesn't think exactly as I do. It's okay to buy things and to enjoy them, but we need to recognize that our purchases have a cost. Considering a purchase first before swiping our cards is extremely important, not only for our wallets, but also for the planet. We've been lied to by corporations who just want us to stoke their profits. Just recycle, or just donate your unwanted things. In reality, these are coercive tactics to make us okay with spending more, disguised as solutions. Electric cars are also part of corporations' proposed solutions to inevitable climate catastrophe. For years, I've been an avid electric car hater, and I finally want to be honest with all of you. As I've stated multiple times throughout this video, the most sustainable thing anyone can do, regardless of their wealth or influence, is buy nothing or to buy used. Who benefits from a world where we all replace our individual gas-powered vehicles with brand new individual electric-powered vehicles? Certainly not us, the working class. This solution doesn't fix the serious infrastructure and transportation problems that the United States has. Millions of brand new cars for each individual will always be worse than some gas-powered public transport and high-speed railways, and options for walking or biking. The responsibility to fix our fossil fuel car economy is therefore placed on the working man, who, for example, cannot afford a brand new electric car. Instead of collective solutions to fix our car dependence, we place the responsibility on the individual. Maybe if we add an extra lane to each highway, these brand new electric cars will also solve our traffic problems. The dangerous mining of new materials by impoverished people and children in other countries is not justified for the sake of switching a few individual Americans to electric cars. Yes, fracking itself is inherently exploitative, but so is any collection of Earth's natural materials under capitalism. My argument is that using the gas-efficient cars that have already been made, but more importantly, prioritizing other forms of transport, is a much more tangible solution. But buying used and riding a bus wouldn't make Ford any money. Wah. And I didn't even cover Americans' obsession with gigantic vehicles that guzzle more gas and make our streets less safe either. I'll be here all day if I start talking about that. The entire system is designed to make us not only want to, but also need to buy more stuff. Planned obsolescence is also a factor in this design. Think of Apple being litigated a few years back for purposefully slowing down their old phones so that people would have to go out and buy new ones. This practice is known as planned obsolescence, which Merriam-Webster defines as the practice of making or designing something in such a way that it will only be usable for a short time so that people will have to buy another one. This practice results in not only higher consumer spending, but also more product waste. Companies design their products to break so that consumers will have to buy new items. Moreover, they make it incredibly hard to repair their products by not selling replacement parts or by making the entire product break down if even a single part breaks. Recently, the tractor brand John Deere has been at the forefront of the right to repair debate. This past January, they were embroiled in legal proceedings with the US Federal Trade Commission for using unfair and deceptive practices in order to control prices and reduce competition. Through the use of its proprietary tools and digital locks, John Deere farm equipment can only be repaired by its authorized dealers. That means farmers can lose crucial time during planting and harvesting seasons. Returning to authorized dealers is also expensive. Another huge issue regarding farm machinery is that equipment manufacturers are limiting interoperability, meaning some brands of farm equipment will not work with other brands, so farmers must buy equipment from the same manufacturer in order to have pieces of equipment work together. The author of the quoted article writes, "The right to repair is about much more than just repairing tractors or household devices. Advocating for the right to repair is about stopping the practice of planned obsolescence by manufacturers. Companies have also been cannibalizing each other for years, making monopolies that own and control almost all of our necessities, meaning that in a lot of cases, it is nearly impossible to avoid buying from one of these disgusting brands. Many of us are backed into corners with a lack of options. I can preach as much as I want about making individual choices, but real change happens on a collective scale. Demonopolizing these companies is the only real solution in this case. However, personally, I still try to buy off brands whenever possible. Not only are they cheaper, but they're not owned by these huge monopolies. Like I covered earlier, I also shop at my local grocers whenever possible. This is what I choose to do for the time being. In my personal position, I find that I don't have too many issues with avoiding a decent amount of these monopolized brands and their products. For instance, I rarely buy ultra-processed foods like chips or candy bars, so I don't have to worry about avoiding Frito-Lay or Mars. Obviously, everyone is not in the same position as me, but I'm highlighting this because I'm trying to make a point. Stay with me. When I purchase bathroom necessities or groceries, I usually try to buy from brands that aren't owned by P&G or General Mills. I know I just said that. Stay with me. This is not always possible, but I try for my own moral standing, but also for the hope that I can assist in making a collective change. For years, I've been using this one brand of deodorant called Tom's of Maine. It's the only natural deodorant that's ever worked for me. I've loved Tom's of Maine, and their third-party certifications are stellar. A few months back though, one of my favorite YouTubers, Shell Bizzle, uploaded a great video about big companies buying out smaller, more ethical companies. She included an example of the popular Mexican-American owned brand Siete being bought out by PepsiCo. But what was more alarming to me was the news that my favorite deodorant brand was bought out by Colgate. When I needed to buy deodorant again recently, I was at a loss. I didn't want to support Colgate, but at the same time, Tom's of Maine's mission still resonated with me. I ended up buying a bulk order directly from their website to avoid going to Walmart. I shouldn't have to buy anymore for at least the next 2 years. I hated that this brand, which I've supported for years, was cannibalized by yet another conglomerate. Everyday Americans who want to avoid buying from mega corporations are often faced with little or no choices. What is most important, and what I hope I've gotten across throughout this video, is that decreasing your consumption overall is just as, if not more important, than simply shifting it from one brand or store to another. Our consumption habits are incredibly complex due to our income levels, our resources available where we live, our own able-bodiedness or lack thereof. I don't want to paint everyone in the Western world with broad strokes since everyone's situation is different. Each person and their own choices have their own nuances. However, I do think that our inability to empathize with those in positions that are different or worse off than our own will be our downfall. Americans can't even empathize with each other. Like I really give a shit about some poor schmuck in the Congo mining precious minerals. Everything you do has an impact. I don't say that to fill you with such nihilism that you board your windows and never go outside. I say it so that you hopefully become a more conscious consumer. We needed to stop our overconsumption problem years ago. With the rise of TikTok and the like, this behavior has only become more normalized. It shouldn't be though, and the endless stream of new products into our stores from deeply heinous companies shouldn't be either. I do believe that we can make collective change as individuals, and I hope that this video helps some of you change your views on consumption. But in order to make permanent change, we have to cut off the exploitation from the source. If you couldn't tell by now, anti-consumption, environmentalism, and the like are all incredibly important to me. Becoming an environmentalist was the first step in my leftist political journey. The final step now is... Sorry, I don't know why that keeps happening. What I was gonna say was... Well, that's it for me, and that's it for this video. I hope this video didn't feel too all over the place. I just had a lot of thoughts about consumption and the way people consume and the system we live in and everything that I just kind of just plopped all down onto a fucking Google Doc, and I tried to make something that was somewhat cohesive, so I hope it came across like that. Real quick, I just want to shout out some of my favorite creators. I mentioned Shell Bizzle a couple times throughout this video. I really do love her channel. I've been watching her for a long time. I also love Shauna Ripari and Susanna Friesen. They all make great content about, anti-consumption and environmentalism, etc. I'm going to link some more creators down below that I can't think of their names right now. I'd highly recommend you check everyone out that I linked down below. If you like what I said in this video, you'll likely like what these other people have to say, is what I'm trying to say, okay? What did you think about this video? Please comment down below anything you want to comment down below. I love hearing all your different opinions and experiences. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like me, you can subscribe. I post videos about literally whatever I feel like talking about, so if that sounds like your thing, make sure to subscribe and turn on your notification bell. If you don't, you will never know when I post a video. So many of you comment on my videos, you're like, haven't seen bro in 6 months. What the fuck, he's emo now? What? I'd like to give a special shout out to my Patreon members who are part of my Alpha and Delta tiers. Thank you so much to Olivia Schutt, Romana Zhuravko, Mail Strange Items, and Dallas Andrade. I really appreciate your continued support. You all mean a lot to me. Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members. If you want to become a patron, guys, the link is down below. I understand if you cannot do it for financial reasons. I understand if you don't want to. But if you can, I'd really appreciate it if you did. Thank you. Anyway, that's it for me, and that's it for this video. I really hope you all enjoy this video, but more importantly than that, I really hope I see you in the next video. You'll be there, right?